Welcome to Get NIST, the series that breaks compliance out of the checkbox trap and turns it into a real security advantage. No fluff, no FUD, just practical strategies to make compliance work for your MSP. I'm Jared Kasner, and today we're bringing you something just a little different. In March of 2026, I gave a talk at B-Sides in San Francisco about building a security program from scratch on a shoestring budget. Today we're putting that talk into your feed. Now, there are a few things you should be aware of. Number one, I crammed a ton of content into a 30-minute talk. So if you normally listen to Get NIST at 1.5x or faster, you might want to consider slowing it down for this week's episode. Number two, this was recorded to talk with slides. If you want to see the full video, which includes the slides, make sure to watch on Spotify or check out our YouTube channel. And then number three, one of the cost-saving measures I talked about was to use a VPN instead of a ZTNA or SASE solution. I have since learned about Tailscale's free plan, which allows for up to 100 endpoints of zero trust network access. So that's a great option for remote workers while keeping your costs low. And with that, here's the talk I gave at B-Side San Francisco 2026.
I'll really just jump right into it because there's a lot to cover here if you're going to try to build a security program on essentially a $0 budget, right? And that's really what the talk is today. So if you are reading this and seeing yourself reflected in this quote, this may not be the talk you're looking for, and that's okay. I am going to try to be as inclusive as possible today and cover all aspects of a security program. At the same time, I only have 30 minutes, and so I'm going to try to rattle through this fairly quickly. But if your budget for security is $1 billion, $100 million, even $1 million, you may not get a whole lot out of this, but really this is built for those or designed for those startups and small businesses that are starting their security program on day one. They know that they are either going to have customer requirements to be compliant with SOC 2 at some time in the future, or at least be building secure software and things like that, or that they are eventually going to be regulated by some government entity, whether it's HIPAA, CMMC, things like that, right? So the goal here is to help you figure out on day one, how do you get that security program off the ground? Or if you're like me at my last 10 startups, coming into an organization that already had software that was already in production, that was already collecting social security numbers and PHI and had no security program and was not doing things the right way, how do you start bringing that in to the fold so that you can start doing things the right way and protect your customer data and protect your business along the way? So for a lot of you, this is going to be old hat, and I apologize for any rehash that you will hear along the way that, like, you already know this. That's okay. My goal here today is to give you at least one thing that you can take away to your organization that is actionable so that you can start doing it tomorrow. So, little preface here. I gave this talk for the first time 6 years ago at B-Sides in San Francisco. A lot of things have changed along the way. I'm going to talk about some of those. One thing that has not changed is my imposter syndrome. So I appreciate all of you being out here today and supporting us, or supporting me, but I am a little bit nervous. So you're going to hear me stumble along the way here, and that's okay. We're going to get through this together. But I do want to talk about some of the things that are new in the last 6 years since I gave this talk last. The first one is phish-resistant MFA and passkeys, right? WebAuthn was released in 2019, so technically in February 2020 when I gave this talk, WebAuthn did exist, but passkeys have become ubiquitous and are being adopted pretty widely right now, and it used to be recommending folks buy YubiKeys or something like that for their staff. Anymore, you can get that right in your computer, and it makes your life a lot easier, and it makes it a much more seamless and frictionless approach to MFA for your users. So huge fan of phish-resistant MFA and passkeys. Next up, supply chain has really become the default attack vector. And so if you are not thinking about third-party risk management and your supply chain as an attack vector, you are missing a beat here. And so I really would encourage you to, and we'll get into third-party risk management a little bit later, but supply chain really has to be one of your primary areas where you're thinking about security. One of the great things that's happened along the way here is that cloud security tooling has gotten a lot better. It has become democratized also. As we've seen new entrants come into the space, cloud security posture management tools have become much more ubiquitous, and that's brought prices down. And it used to be, for companies like myself, it was almost impossible to get a cloud security posture management tool that was actually affordable, or that would even sell to me because of minimums in terms of number of seats. One of the things that's great about how ubiquitous it's become is that now I can actually not only buy it, and buy it directly, but I can buy it at a price that makes sense for me. DMARC 6 years ago was relatively optional. It's still, I think you can argue, because a lot of vendors are still, or email providers are still allowing P equals none to come through. The DMARC is still probably a little bit optional, but they're at least nominally requiring DMARC. So if you're not doing SPF and DKIM records, there's a good chance that your emails are getting lost. And then I think one of my favorite pieces is that NIST added Govern to their cybersecurity framework 2.0 a couple years ago, and that's been a huge thing. I feel like there might be something I'm missing here. Oh, yes, AI. AI is everywhere. So you probably have heard of this AI thing. I'm sure it's a passing fad, but it is the thing that's out there. And don't worry, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about AI today. So let's talk about security. What we're talking about today is not building a set of tools. It's building a security program. And so a couple of caveats before I really get into this here. First of all, I'm fluent in AWS. I've been using AWS for 15 years, so I'm going to use the language of AWS. That is not to say that Azure or GCP are bad services. They are wonderful platforms as a service. I just don't know them as well. So I'm going to ask you all to code switch for me and translate in your head to the platform that you like. And then I will also say I will talk about a couple of tools today. The goal here is not to endorse any one specific tool. There are some excellent ones out there, but I would encourage you to do your research, Google it, find the alternative that might work for you. So any tools that I talk about, this is not an endorsement of those tools. And with that out of the way, we can dive right into this. So how do you start a security program? It really starts with planning. And for me, that is starting with a security framework, right? Whether that's NIST cybersecurity framework, CIS, and both of those are excellent choices, but picking something that you're going to align your security program to so that as you build it, you have a framework and an umbrella to put everything under. And it really gives you that roadmap to sort things out. This is where I think I like CSF because it provides that really overarching umbrella. But if you really don't know what you're doing, starting with something like CIS where you can build IG1, IG2, IG3 and get a much more opinionated approach can be a very valuable way to get things off the ground. From that security framework, one of the first things that almost every security framework is going to ask you to do is write policies. Now, you can go out to ChatGPT and have it write security policies for you, and they will be 90, 95% correct. And they might be even good enough for what you're doing. If you are thinking about compliance in the future, you might want to do something a little bit more than ChatGPT or Gemini or one of those AI platforms and get something that is going to be a little bit more robust and guarantee that you're aligned with this compliance initiative that you need to go towards. But if you're just worried about getting something off the ground, those AI tools are actually a great place to get started. With each security policy, you need to have an owner. And this is in the language of Procter & Gamble and some of the large enterprises, this is the one throat to choke. Who owns that policy that when things go wrong, that's the person who needs to take care of it. But more importantly, when you need an exception to the policy, who is allowed to approve that exception? And when we talk about ownership, if you have too few owners or too many owners, you essentially have zero ownership. So the idea is to have a single person that is responsible for any given portion of your security program. So there's going to be one person who owns the whole thing and then one person for each policy. Really with the idea, if you're not doing that, there's something that's going to be missed in the cracks. If nobody owns it, guess what? Nothing happens. And if two people own it, wait, you're not doing it? You're not? Shoot, we're falling through the cracks there also. So make sure you have a single owner for any given thing that you're doing. All right? And one way that you can do that is to put security in people's job descriptions. This is actually something that I learned from B-Sides, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now. I've been coming a long time. So, but putting security in everybody's job descriptions, right? If your marketing team knows that they need to secure customer data in your CRM, if your legal team knows that they are responsible for the contracts, if your financial team knows that they are responsible for securing your bank account and the finances, if everybody understands what aspect of security they own on day one of their employment, they are going to do the right thing by default, but also you can put that into their annual review and bonus them accordingly. And right when compensation is tied to the things the outcomes that you want, it makes for a lot better process. And then we get into threat modeling. And so this is particularly true for application security, but at the end of the day, threat modeling, actually again, a talk that I heard at B-Sides, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, somebody made the analogy that security really hasn't changed in 10,000 years. 10,000 years ago, I had something you wanted to take it from me. My job was to stand out in front of my cave with a club and keep you away from it. And if I had a bigger club, I was going to protect my things. And if you had a bigger club, you probably were going to take it from me. And the same thing is kind of true today, right? If I don't understand what it is that I want to protect and don't understand how to protect that, there's no way that I can possibly stop you from getting it, right? So threat modeling is really just that exercise of call it risk mitigation, call it whatever you want, but the idea is how do you figure out what it is that you're protecting and make sure that that's getting protected effectively. Then, of course, we got to throw some song lyrics into this. All right, next up I want to talk about education. Education does not need to be buying a platform. In fact, on day one, education could be just running your staff through PowerPoints and things like that. There are free tools that are out there that will help you with this also. PagerDuty at sudo.pagerduty.com has some PowerPoint templates that you can go ahead and download. They're free. There's one for everybody. There's one for developers. It's anything you need. They're a little bit dated. I think the last update was like 2021, so they're a little bit dated, but it's a great place to start if you're looking for ways to educate your staff without having to spend any money. CISA has great tools. YouTube is a great source of educational videos, so if you ever want to see what a social engineering attack looks like, if you ever want to see what phishing or vishing look like, YouTube is a great place to go. But really, most importantly, is to bring this home. And so anytime you can tell a story about security that will bring this home for your staff, you'll make your life better. So one of the stories I like to tell is my poor brother-in-law. At the time, he was teaching in a middle school, and he and the rest of the staff learned the hard way to make sure that AirDrop was locked down. Because one of his students broke up with his girlfriend, or the girlfriend broke up with him, he got mad and airdropped to everybody who had open AirDrop topless pictures of a 14-year-old girl. Suboptimal experience for everybody involved. But when you can bring these things home and when you can educate your staff on why it's important to be secure and how to secure not just at work but at home also, it makes those lessons much more relevant, and they will do the right thing not just with your stuff at work but also with their bank accounts and along the way, right? So please do educate your staff. All right, this is kind of a big topic with identity and access management. I'll try not to belabor this too much. The one I want to hammer on the most here is the principle of least privilege. I think everybody's heard of this before, but the idea here is give people the minimum amount of credentials that they need, or the minimal amount of access that they need to do their job, and nothing more. And that's true whether it's a human, whether it's an AI agent, whether it's anything else. The more you can constrain this, the better. Now, we just talked about 14-year-old girls. How many of you have tried to take a cell phone away from a 14-year-old girl? It's not easy, right? Same thing is true when you start to try to take permissions away from your staff members. So it's much easier if you can start your security program or start your credentials with the minimum amount of things that they need on day one of their job, and then build up from there. It's a lot easier to give something to somebody than it is to take it away from them. So please think about that principle of least privilege early and often. Every time you're buying a new set of software or anything else, start with it scoped as small as possible and then build up from there, and that will save you a lot of heartache over time. I talked about phish-resistant MFA, so I don't want to belabor that one too much. Along those lines, though, are short-lived credentials. The shorter your credentials are, the less room there is if somebody steals one of your bearer tokens, and so having those credentials be short-lived will make your life a lot easier. Again, if you're building an application, there's a fine balance that you have to make between how do I make this not annoying for my users, where every time they click a button, they have to log back into my platform, versus keeping them secure. So you're going to have to find that balance, and there's no like one silver bullet that says, oh, it must be 11.7 seconds or 32 minutes. You have to find the number that works for you and for your customers. SSO and SCIM, these are a hot button topic for me. There's still a lot of vendors out there that play or that want to be, I'll call it SMB friendly, that forces attacks for SSO and SCIM onto you and make you move into an enterprise plan in order to get single sign-on or SCIM integrations. Please, if you have the opportunity to get single sign-on and SCIM, turn those on. Enforce single sign-on wherever you can. Enforce MFA wherever you can. You're not going to be able to do that when you're on a shoestring budget, because you're just not going to be able to afford all the enterprise tooling that you want to have. But wherever you can, do that. Single sign-on, or excuse me, SSH and RDP. I have a love-hate relationship with being able to log in this. As a developer, I love to be able to get in and tinker and understand exactly what's happening on a box. But at the end of the day, I want my boxes to be ephemeral. I want if I can make things completely ephemeral, then I don't even need to have SSH access. And so if I can just start building from day one without SSH at all, then I'm going to make my life a lot easier in the long run, because I don't have to take something away from somebody, and I don't have to worry about break glass accounts to get in for SSH. The great thing is all of the cloud providers now have some form of session management. In AWS, it's SSM, where I can actually get the equivalent of SSH to get into a box if I absolutely have to, but every keystroke is logged when I do that. And it's doing it without having to expose port 22 to the internet, and it's doing it credentialed, and it's doing it in a way that is much more safe and secure than just doing raw SSH. So think about how you're going to, if you need to do SSH at all, how you're going to secure it, and ideally avoid it entirely. Every ZTNA and SASE vendor out there will tell you VPN is dead. I say long live VPN. At the end of the day, we talked about third-party risk management. We'll get into that again, actually specifically here. Make sure you're paying attention to who your VPN provider is. A lot of the ZTNA and SASE solutions out there are very expensive. VPN is actually really affordable, especially if you're doing something like AWS VPN, where you can just, it's based on consumption, and you're paying cents per hour for that connection. And so, again, the more you can limit the scope, bring things down, constrain access and your attack surface, the better off you're going to be. And then as you can afford ZTNA and SASE solutions and focus more on the zero trust and making sure that all of your devices are configured properly before with your conditional access policies, you can move in that direction later, but start with something, because something is better than nothing. How many of you have had staff members send you a Slack message with credentials, passwords, things like that? Yeah, too many hands going up right now. Get a password manager. They are not that expensive. I think 1Password has a $20 a month plan for up to 10 users or something like that. There are password managers out there that you can very easily afford, even on a shoestring budget. Do it. Share your passwords securely. Again, whether it's 1Password or something else, go out and find the tool that you like the best, that works for you. Get a credential vault. Find ways so you're not having to do this on your own. And then last but not least, and this is one that almost everybody forgets, do your user audits. Whether it's quarterly or annually, at some cadence, go through all of your systems and figure out who still has access, because I guarantee you there is somebody in there, the ghosts in the system, that still have access that you aren't aware of. And I saw this I had a friend about a year ago who ended up in a lawsuit because they had managed to offboard an employee but hadn't offboarded that employee from their AI note taker. And all of a sudden, their former employee was still getting emailed. They had signed up with their personal email and was still getting emailed meeting summaries that included executive meeting minutes with that AI note taker. So make sure you are doing your user audits so you don't give yourself a lot of heartache. It's simple. It takes very little time, and it's something that you can do for free very quickly. All right, who's heard the phrase, it's always DNS, right? Yeah, should have seen every hand go up here. DNS, things we talked about DMARC earlier, it's really no longer optional. All the major email providers are requiring it today. Get your SPF and DKIM records up. Again, the sooner you get those into place, the better. Don't just do P equals none. At least get quarantine, if not reject. But as you are building this out and starting from the ground up, guess what? Every time you add a new email provider, if you've already got it set to quarantine or reject, you're going to know immediately when things aren't working, so you can add that additional provider in and be very thoughtful about it. And that also helps prevent some of the shadow IT, where marketing goes off and buys a new tool and starts emailing people without you knowing about it, right? So you can make yourself a lot happier by doing some of the right things on day one. DNSSEC, prohibiting transfer of your DNS, things like that. Also very important, get your security headers. Securityheaders.com is a great way to check your security headers and make sure you have your content security policy in place, that you are ensuring HTTPS everywhere. These are very simple things that you can do. And again, building up your content security policy is going to save you a lot of heartache than if you've been running something in production for 10 years and it's, all right, which things am I pulling from? Uh-oh. And now all of a sudden I'm breaking software. Again, if you're building it up, then as soon as something hits your staging environment or your test environment, you're going to very quickly find out that you need to allow list another domain, and building up is a lot easier than tearing down. All right. How many of you love third-party risk management and reading SOC 2 and ISO reports? Yeah, every hand goes up right away. Those SOC 2 reports, they have never lied to you, right? Every SOC 2 report out there is... I've seen the SOC 2 reports that are scoped down to a single machine in a server closet that is not even remotely close to the entire company. So you do need to read your SOC 2 reports. That it is not enough to just say, oh, you've got a SOC 2, great, you pass. You need to actually read those SOC 2 reports, figure out whether the services you want are in scope. Otherwise, you are going to be in a world of hurt later on. Again, your suppliers are your biggest weakness because, of course, you're taking care of your own your first-party security risks yourself. 100% of you are doing that. I see lots of heads nodding. Everybody's feeling very confident about their security programs. Excellent. But but you really do need to be thinking about those external reports. SOC 2 Guild, it's s2guild.org, has a great rubric. So if you've never read a SOC 2 report or don't know how to read one effectively, s2guild.org is a great place to go and learn how to read a SOC 2 report. I don't have enough time to go into all the reasons why that's important, and there are some things that they need to add to that. So I've got some pull requests pending for them. I haven't put them up yet, but there's some stuff that I'm going to be advocating for. But it's an open source project to help increase trust within SOC 2 reports. But from that, you also need to probe a little bit more, right? If it's your t-shirt vendor, probably don't need to worry about your SOC 2 report or too much about their security program. But if it's your janitor, guess what? You still need to worry about how they're going to secure things because there's physical controls that you need to think about. If it's your software vendors, what sort of data are they going to be accessing of yours? How do you make sure that you are securing it or that they are keeping your stuff secure and that you can trust what they're doing? And so build those security questionnaires. And that doesn't mean send out a SIG or a SIG Lite. Those are hundreds of questions. Nobody's going to fill those out or fill them out accurately. What you want to do is instead, if you can get it down to 10, 15, 20 questions that are very pointed about the things that you care about the most, and really even if you can spend the extra 10 minutes to customize it based on what's in their SOC 2 report and things like that, you're going to do yourself a world of good because they are going to spend. If you get a security questionnaire and it's only got 10 questions in it, you're going to spend a lot more time making sure that the answers are correct than just saying yes or no. And please, for the love of God, stop asking yes/no questions on your security questionnaires. Ask questions that are meaningful and that elicit some sort of give and take out of that. All right, because we're in Silicon Valley, I'm going to talk about some AppSec. The OWASP Top 10, first released, I think, in 2003. It really has not changed much since then, and that is a depressing fact. Right? The same things are coming up over and over again. And guess what? For all of you vibe coders out there, that OWASP Top 10 is based on the same open source packages that are training the LLMs. And so if you're thinking, oh, don't worry, I'm going to vibe code my way into security, you're probably introducing the same sets of bugs. And it's baffling to me that 20 years of SQL injection at the top of the list, and now prompt injection is at the top of the list because people have not learned to sanitize their input. So think about your OWASP Top 10. Use the Z-Attack proxy to go and test yourself and check for those things. There are free tools out there like Z-Attack proxy, Burp Suite, things like that will help you test your code. Do code reviews. This is a great time to be alive if you're a developer. You don't need to have a technical co-founder who can review your code. You can get AI to do that. It's not perfect. It's not a true replacement for a human review, but it is an awesome way to accelerate yourself. And until you get that second developer in-house, to be able to build something meaningful and have some level of assurance that the code that you're writing is good. Software component analysis, whether it's Dependabot or Sneak or one of the other many SCA tools that are out there, it's a good way to, again, looking at that supply chain. GitHub gives you an SBOM out of the box, so like make sure you're using that and understand where to find that. It's there. SAST is a little bit controversial because there are tools like SonarQube that are free that work, and again, better than nothing. There are AI-powered tools that are out there that are, again, they work and they're better than nothing, but they're also going to give you a lot of false positives. And so, again, to the extent that you can bring SAST into your solution, again, even if it's just using SonarQube and AI that are Claude Code, things like that are free or cheap, please do that. You will find things that you didn't expect to find, and it's a great way to just improve your baseline. And then intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, a lot of times people look at that and say, oh, it's got to be way out of reach. Actually, there are vendors out there who are in the AWS marketplace that have between 1 cent and 6 cents an hour opportunities to put IDS onto your boxes and give yourself a little bit of additional peace of mind. Again, if you're paying 1 cent an hour for a service, it may not be the industry leader, but guess what is better than 0? 1, right? So you've got to think about those ways to level up a little bit until you can afford the industry-leading solutions. Logging and alerting. I do a fair amount of consulting and advising of other startups, and I had a client that I was talking to, this is about a year and a half ago, that could not figure out how to spell HIPAA, but was building a platform on top of an ERM, an EMR. And it worried me a little bit when I asked this question about what they were going to come back with. But I said, all right, so you don't have any PHI in your logs, do you? And they very confidently answered, no, I don't have any PHI in my logs. That doesn't sound quite right here because you don't even know what HIPAA is. So how do you know that? Oh, because we don't have any logs at all. Cool, so how do you debug it when a user complains? Oh, we just SSH into the box and use a Rails console. In production with patient health data, that ends now. So centralized logging, again, you want your boxes to be ephemeral. So if you can get away from SSH, if you can put your logs into the cloud, whether it's an ELK stack, if you want to do it yourself, or one of the many SIM vendors that are out there, Bluemira, Datadog. I mean, Bluemira, I think, has a pretty cheap option available. Datadog is like $2.50 per million logs per month. If you're a small startup, you're probably not generating much more than $1 million logs per month. So look for those centralized logging services that are going to make your life a lot easier as a developer. Again, you can go all the way to Splunk and some of the very big vendors out there and get the industry leader for SIM, but you'll also be paying for that. Instead, you can focus on the cheaper solutions. Even if it's not a full SIM solution, having that centralized logging will make your life a lot easier. But then more importantly, put some alerting and paging around that, because just having the logs in place doesn't tell you anything if you don't know that there's a problem, right? So you have to understand when there are gremlins in there that you can do something with. So PagerDuty, OpsGenie, there are a bunch of tools that if you have less than 5 developers are free to use. Find those tools, go ahead and put those into your stack. All right, I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try to rattle through some of this here real quickly. We used to call this antivirus, endpoint detection and response, EDR, however you want to call it today. There are excellent tools that are out there. It used to be 6 years ago, you had to have a 100-seat minimum in order to buy a lot of these tools. Most of them now have made it much more commoditized, and you can buy them off the shelf, even the next-gen AV products that are $50 per month per user. So definitely put an EDR into your stack. MDM and device management. I had a friend call me 3 months ago saying, hey, we had one of our laptops, employees' laptops got stolen. Great, you've got an MDM, let's just go and remote wipe that device. While we're in here, let's just make sure that understand what the exposure is. Oh, you haven't enforced full disk encryption. You haven't enforced screen lock. Awesome. Just having these tools in place does you no good if you are not configuring them properly. So take the time to configure these things properly. Hire an MSP or an MSSP to help you configure these things, even if it's just on an hourly basis to get things off the ground. You, again, will save yourself a lot of heartache along the way. In that AWS ecosystem, you've got Security Hub, which includes Inspector and GuardDuty and other tools that will help you track your CloudTrail logs and other and vulnerabilities. In order for you to understand what you've got in your, you can't protect what you don't know about, so make sure you're keeping an asset inventory, even if that's just an Excel spreadsheet. Keeping that asset inventory, keeping a risk register, talking about the risks that matter to your organization is important, and then back up what matters, right? You don't need to back up everything on day one, although it would be nice. Ideally, you're following the 3-2-1 rule for backups. Again, that would be nice, but start somewhere, get something backed up, and focus on the things that matter the most to you. All right, so let's go thrift shopping a little bit. You're already doing step one, which is coming to a show like B-Sides, which is a relatively inexpensive way of getting a lot of great security content. But even RSA, you can go out, a quick Google search will find you free Expo Hall passes and keynote passes, so you can get some great content from RSA. But a lot of those talks will also be recorded and available online. Look for VARs, MSPs, MSSPs to help you with these things. If there's a tool that you want that you can't meet the license minimum for, ask them for their reseller program, because you can often find, they'll even direct you into an MSP or MSSP that will sell you 1 or 2 licenses of a platform that otherwise would be a 100-seat minimum. Please do negotiate. Almost every vendor out there will negotiate with you, even if they have a credit card swipe type of transaction. You can get vendors to negotiate with you. And then looking for strict cost budgets budgets and budget alerts will make your life a lot easier. All right, so let's talk the money shot here. If you notice, a lot of this stuff was time, because time is free, right? So documentation, education from YouTube and PagerDuty, free tools, whether it's open source or other things, third-party risk management, spreadsheets. A lot of these things can be done, quote unquote, for free, because we all know, like I said, time is free. But if you're keeping track, if you're doing 10 million lines or 10 million logs a month at that $2.50 per million per month factor, you're talking about $300 a month for that. IDS, again, depending on how many instances you have, let's say it's 10 instances that you're running at 2 cents a month. EDR at $50 per year per employee for 10 employees. MDM, password manager, right? You're talking about an entire security program for less than $5,000 per year because you've done this on a shoestring. All right? So if you're going to take one thing away from this talk, your security journey gets easier the earlier you start, so just start. The analogy I like to use here is the 401k. If you start investing in your 401k or your retirement account when you're 22, you can put small amounts away, and that amount will compound over time. and make you help you out with retirement. But if you're waiting until you're 65, or in the case of security, waiting until a customer says, I need a SOC 2 report, you're going to spend a lot of money in order to get there. So whatever you do, just start now, start small, do something, because it will pay dividends over time. Thank you.